It's okay. I cracked it.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society.
You're in violation of secure communication procedures, Commodore.
So we just went ahead and fixed the glitch.
There is no America. There is no democracy.
Our fifth objective, a new world order.
There are no nations. There are no languages. There are no Russians. There are no Arabs. There are no third worlds. There is no West.
Right-wing conspiracy.
What do you call it when the assassins accuse the assassin?
A new world order.
Thank you for plugging in to the Stones Unturned podcast.
Well, just a second there, Professor. We fixed the glitch.
I'm your host, Professor Thomas Henry Horan.
He reads everything.
Oh, hello there, you magnificent beatards. You better bet your bippies he reads everything when he can find his glasses. I don't need them. I can crack this case without glasses. So, I have cracked this case. I can prove it. That'll take time. So, I'll show you what I got done so far. Most of what I got done. Then we'll go members only, and I will show you who did it. And I will show you why he did it. But I have figured out what happened. I will show all of you that. If you want to know who did it, get plugged in to the Stones Unturned podcast. And let me explain something. I know some of you are new, so I'm going to try to straighten up and grow up a little bit for a few more episodes so I don't scare you off. I am a professor. That doesn't make a bit of difference. Before I got into education and publishing, I was a private investigator and systems analyst and internal auditor, independent auditor, okay? And insurance fraud, bank fraud, forgery. So, and I had been raised by like bankers and lawyers and politicians and newspaper publishers. So, I mean, I was auditing or assistant auditing. This was a small town, small factory town in a rural area. So I would end up helping out on audits on government agencies when I was like 14, learning how to do it. At least unofficial. Here, run these numbers for me. Here, you go through this book, see if you can find anything. Unofficial. So, as a professor, I was looking for a book project, an article or something on the Zodiac Killer letters as part of, back in the day, back in the ancient technology of magazines and newspapers, the comment section was called Letters to the Editor. And there would be these conversations that went on, but they were really slow, and the editors were super picky about what they published. Same idea, though. And remembering that those Zodiac Killer letters were letters to the newspapers, not to the police or to the victims. Letters, almost all of them went to the San Francisco Chronicle, which people don't realize was a tabloid newspaper. In fact, the National Enquirer poached some of their very best investigative reporters from the Chronicle. And then by that time, this is around 2009, 2010, the full text of all the letters, scans of all the letters, copies of all the original police reports had become available online. So I thought this will be interesting. And as I compared the letters to the police reports and newspaper articles, I realized something. There was no Zodiac Killer. Those letters were a hoax. Let me back that up 1/2 second. The only evidence for a serial killer, the only supposed connection between any two of these murders were the letters. Bloody pieces of shirt, blah, blah, blah. Read this book, The Myth of the Zodiac Killer. The TV series on Peacock, is it still on Peacock? It's been on other NBC channels. It goes beyond the book. You kind of need to read the book first, because they went out and did more research and interviewed more people. So that's like a follow-up to the book. And then this podcast, I started when this thing bounced around Hollywood for years. I had 2 agents. They both died of old age. In the meantime, I started doing podcasts, and I thought I would do a podcast, and for a lot of reasons. And I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll start by debunking some of the really crazy conspiracy theories, like Manson and Son of Sam were both CIA operations and things like this. And immediately, while looking into the real investigation, into the real Nugan Bank scandal, came one of my co-researchers sent me this book. Found this book and sent it to me. It's called Hospital Security and Safety by Arthur Michael Pascal, who is the contract killer in the Maury Terry book, not The Evil Dead, Ultimate Evil, right? Who was convicted of bumping off the mobster's body, bumping off the prostitute who may have been transgendered on behalf of the bodybuilding mobster's son. He wrote this book, and this book explains the Donna Lauria murder. It explains the shooting of Carl Denaro. It explains this book, the existence of this book. And yes, it is the same guy. And by the way, he was one of that. There were a couple dozen PIs back in the 70s and 80s who would kidnap kids from cults and bring them back for deprogramming. He invented that. As a matter of fact, Arthur Michael Pascal was a Boston Police Department detective, and he was their resident cult expert. He worked on the cult family. He investigated the Charles Manson before Charles Manson. The Charles Manson of Boston that Bobby Beausoleil and Kenneth Anger, of course, a couple other people knew before they split for the left coast, okay? And I thought, well, geez, and this book explains about half of the whole thing. The existence of this book explains what happened to the heroin. The existence of this book explains what happened to the money. The existence of this book explains what happened to Frank Lucas. Because it turns out that the craziest parts of the Son of Sam story are not only the truest, but it gets crazier than that. And then, lucky coincidence, all the files and autopsy stuff that in the Son of Sam murders have come out online. And just like in Zodiac, when I started reading those actual police reports, actual autopsy reports, the actual scans of the letters, they tell a totally different story from the myth that Graysmith told you. So the first 1/3 of this book is using the actual police files, not only debunking Graysmith's book, but proving that Graysmith did have copies of these files, and he simply lies about them. Some of the lies are ridiculous. He'll take a very long paragraph, about that much material, copy it out word for word perfectly from the original police report. But he'll change the identity of the witness, or he'll change the identity of the subject. He'll use the same police report twice. He'll pretend it's this witness in this year, and it's another witness in another year. And that's not he lies all the way through his book. Now, the point I'm making is the Zodiac Killer was never real. The murders were real. The Zodiac Killer was never real. The Zodiac Killer is a manifestation. When I wrote this book, that word manifest had not come back into style lately. I wish it had. I may revive. He's manifested in the form of these letters. The Zodiac Killer in your mind and in the mind of law enforcement was manifested by these letters. And these letters very specifically were extortion letters. But they were fake. And one of the interesting things was the letters themselves contained evidence that they were hoaxes, just in case the guy got caught. You saw what happened to the Manson family. They didn't kill anybody. Read Tom O'Neill's book, Chaos. They didn't kill anybody. Same thing. The original files, the original autopsy photographs, the original autopsy reports in the Manson-related murders, they tell a totally different story than the horse hockey that we've been fed. Bugliosi told the jury a complete and total myth. That entire confession by Susan Atkins in front of the grand jury was taken, she plagiarized it all from newspapers and TV, which was all false. The police reports and the autopsy report, the crime scene photographs debunk every word of Susan Atkins' story about what happened. The evidence does show that the Manson family showed up several hours later and tampered with the crime scene. No kidding. I am not kidding. The evidence clearly shows that that's all they did. The whole thing about the acid and they're rehearsing the murders is to convince them that they had done it. This was one of the mind control experiments that they were running with the Manson family. Could we convince them that they had committed murders that they hadn't committed? And apparently they did. Because they didn't do shit except tamper with the crime scenes. They never killed anybody that we know of. They didn't kill anybody that we know of. Son of Sam, the actual police reports come out. They tell a totally different story. And we're only halfway through that on the Stones Unturned podcast. They're telling a totally different story. I have interviewed Carl Denaro. He's told me a Christmas list of lies, which I debunked. The files do a better job of that, debunking the lies. It's all about controlling the narrative. The Zodiac Killer letters were mailed to the newspapers in an attempt to control the narrative about some murders of some young people that appeared to be unrelated, but it turns out it's not about the kids, it's about their parents. And the killer didn't even really care whether he killed the target or not. It's just about sending a warning to the parents. And guess who does that? The mafia. Well, in the Son of Sam case, the shooter obviously didn't care whether he actually killed the target or not, except in one case. And that's the mafia. And it turns out Carl Denaro, Donna Lauria, blah, 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 all these people, mafia. But it isn't just mafia. It turns out that the guy who actually... So once you know the letters are a hoax, there's really only one person in the whole world who could have written them. And I got samples of his handwriting and from 1969, and they're a perfect match for the Zodiac Killer letters. Why? And then you find out who this guy is. You're looking at you look at his military and his academic records, and you're looking at a first-round draft pick of the CIA. Why would he write the Zodiac Killer letters? To change the narrative. To change the narrative about what? Well, the funny thing is, in the fall of 1969, this guy's friend, Tony Poe, Anthony Pashepny, was making all this noise about Vang Pao and the CIA officers skimming the profits from Vang Pao's heroin sales in the United States to buy weapons to fight the communists, this time in Southeast Asia. So, blah, 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 blah. Are you with me? No, you're not. You got to read the book. You got to watch the series. You got to plug into the Stones Unturned podcast. Then it turns out there's this other case. There's this this case of this little murdered girl, JonBenet Ramsey, and there's a phony ransom note that's intended to change the narrative. In the Son of Sam case, there are some bogus letters written to the newspapers. Newspaper reporters actually vandalized Berkowitz's apartment, and I can prove that, in order to make the story sound better. It's all about changing the narrative. It's all about changing the narrative, and it's all about manifesting a crime and criminal who did not exist in order to cover up what did happen. And it turns out, like in the Zodiac Killer case, the parents are all involved in top secret work for the Defense Department. In the Son of Sam case, the parents are all involved with mafia and specifically heroin trafficking, cocaine trafficking, and money laundering. There's others. In Manson, you've got kids whose dads worked in aerospace. You've got Catherine Scher, whose parents were executed by the Gestapo because her parents were Hungarian Jewish communists. It's spooky, spooky, spooky. Professional propaganda artists create a hoax which changes the narrative. You got your Ted Gundersons. You got your... first it was Lansdale. Who was the UFO guy after that? J. Allen Hynek. You've got these retired intelligence guys who pick up extra pocket money, pushing satanic panics, pushing UFO panics. Peter Levenda pops up over and over. He pops up in ways I will show you in the JBR case, in a way that matters very much. So I started out to debunk some goofy conspiracy theories and ended up the conspiracy theories were almost right. But what the conspiracy theories were almost touching on was that the original case itself is a hoax. The murders are real. There's some other crimes that are real. But the criminal, the Zodiac Killer, this Son of Sam, I know they arrested Berkowitz. Goody gumdrops for them. I'm not talking about Berkowitz. I'm talking about the Son of Sam. It's a manifestation in the mind of the mass populace of a non-existent super criminal. Remember the original Jackal terrorist? He was fake. The Wolfie Schickelgruber was primarily a hoax. We'll get to that later. You know nothing about World War. You know nothing about the Holocaust. So, here we have a case of a missing old lady, some bloodstains that nobody even noticed for 3 days, and a bunch of phony ransom notes and a staged doorbell video that are supposed to change the narrative. What's wrong with the first narrative? The first narrative is that the old Baggs family didn't care enough about her to get a nanny cam. They didn't have ADT. They did not have an active Google Nest Aware subscription. A member of the family has claimed that they accidentally let it lapse. He didn't say which member of the family was responsible for maintaining it. He didn't. You can't sign up for jack shit on Google without you're automatically signed up for auto renewal automatically. You have to manually cancel that. You can cancel anytime, but you have to automatically cancel your auto renewal. And if your card expires, Google will send you about 253 alerts per day until you do something about it. So who wasn't checking that email address at all? These are the questions the public has had. Now, the problem is this is the mother of Savannah Guthrie, NBC's golden child. And I will say it again, over and over again, and it is absolutely true. NBC Universal treated me like a star. I can't be more pleased with that documentary that they made. I got a very nice deal out of it. Everything was marvelous. Mwah! Thank you very much. But as Savannah Guthrie herself, I'm sure, would tell you, the truth is the truth. Savannah's vocal cords were shot. She had to have surgery. This was in December. In January, she made one brief appearance saying that the recovery is going fine. February 1st, her mother disappears, and now she takes 2 months off more from work. The public see a fake, they're just like, oh my God, she doesn't care about her mother, blah, 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 let her wander off. This is what was told to the public. Everybody's upset. This is not good for Savannah's ratings. And remember, this kind of stardom, this is the Today Show. Remember, she replaced Matt Lauer after she threw him under the bus? We'll come back to that in members only. You may or may not know she's a crackerjack criminal defense attorney, late of Aiken Gump. You never heard of Aiken Gump, but you heard of Leon Black, and you heard of Enron, and you've heard of Jeffrey Epstein, and you've heard of a lot. My question is this. Ever since the news broke and the public reaction was a little sour, ever since then, Savannah Guthrie has been acting like the kidnapper's defense attorney. And I'm not exaggerating or imagining this. Let me say hello. Hi, Medley. How close are you to getting that coin? Probably another $20. Wait till you see it. Manifest is a great word. Wait till you see who's been using it. Reading about John Ramsey giving Savannah Guthrie advice. Let me come back to that in 1 second. Idaho 4 was the message to the parents for snitching on Aaron Nation. It could easily have been, Baby Bull. Advice on what? Oh, 79. And now the family's refusing to talk to the sheriff's department. This is what I'm talking about, Medley. She's acting like a defense attorney, which she is. Well, thank you, Medley. Give me a month or so. I'm not going to spend a lot of money on it because they're worthless. I'm mainly going to be paying for shipping and handling. So thank you so much. Hi, Nathan. Is that everybody? Hi, everybody. So let me run through. I figured out what happened. Here's the thing. Nobody committed a crime. It's a crime to hide a body. It's only a felony to hide a body if you're hiding a body so you can collect insurance. They're not collecting insurance. Well, they are collecting. Remember, as long as she's missing and not legally dead, the Social Security checks and the pension checks keep coming in. Don't forget that. The medical bills dropped to zero. There's not even a funeral bill. There's not even don't even have to pay for ADT security or Nest Aware now. They were paying for a pool service. Did you see that pool? They were paying for landscaping. What's that come to? About $500 a month altogether? I don't know about Tucson prices. They couldn't blow $10 a month on a Nest Aware, $99 a year. And I know you were reminded 100 times. Believe me. I know how many notifications you get from Google when you don't pay your bill. Be all of that as it may, why is Savannah acting like... Wouldn't faking a kidnapping bring too much attention? Nathan, they can't get enough attention. They can't get enough attention. Also, I didn't say it was a good idea. And I think I know why. Here's the thing, Nathan. Remember when the news came out that she was missing, probably in very poor health, life in danger? Remember, all the public reaction was pretty much negative. How did they let her wander off? Nobody even claimed it was a kidnapping for a couple of days. So where'd they get this bright idea? See, this changes the narrative, Nathan. It changes the narrative from being a neglectful family to being the victim. You've seen how many times Savannah has cried on camera. It changes the narrative. And surprise, surprise, it turns out that Savannah is going to, in addition to today, in addition to, she was doing the Today Show, she was doing, and here's the thing. She came back from vocal cord surgery probably a bit prematurely, and she was supposed to be doing the Olympics, and she had to leave the Olympics desk because of this. And she called Senator Mark Kelly. It's about keeping your eyes off the ball, that's right. Liability? Not really. Let me show you what happened. Let me show you what really happened and why Dingleberry would actually try to cover it up somehow. Let me show you. February 1st, the news comes out. Supposedly, now I'm color coding this, 11:56 a.m., Tommaso and Annie. Annie is Nancy's other daughter. They've been keeping an eye on the old bag. They live about 5-10 minutes away. I think it's like 5 minutes away, right? They live pretty much in the same neighborhood. Not in the same block, but they live in the same neighborhood. Well, this game show, when Savannah announced it, she said, well, I've been sitting on this for a long time. Well, how long? Well, anyway, they supposedly arrive at the house 11:56 a.m. This is, one more time, we're going to go back to how to actually investigate a cold case, and this case has gone ice cold. You don't start with the story of the fairy tale of what happened, because we don't know what happened. You start with the story of the police investigation. So that's step one. Will be the police stuff will be in blue. At 12:03 p.m., the Tucson area sheriff gets a call, 911 call. I can't find my mommy. At 12:15, the first deputy arrives. That's 12 minutes. Keep that in mind. Took 12 minutes for the nearest deputy to get there after calling 911. Medley, you're going to love that coin even more than I do. Mark Kelly said Savannah called him. It would have been about 1 p.m. Tucson time. 3 p.m. Washington time, somewhere in that window, if you believe anything Senator Mark Kelly tells you. At 4:30-ish local time, at the earliest, that Savannah could have caught a plane and flown home. Her brother flew home in his own plane, right? Was he allowed to take an Air National Guard plane? I don't think so. Did he fly himself home? He's a pilot. Savannah calls her brother Cameron. Cameron says this sounds like a targeted kidnapping, which is very interesting because he's the one who would be targeted, even more than Savannah. Obviously, some people tried to play it up like it's Trump supporters, and for reasons that at 6:45 p.m., the sheriff publicly broadcast this alert. 84 years old, 5 foot 5 inches, 150 pounds. Huh. Man, that's a lot of dead weight. You ever try to lug 150 pounds of dead weight? I don't mean live grandma. I mean dead weight. You ever try to lug a 150-pound corpse all by yourself? Anywhere? Try rolling it over. It's like a sack of Jell-O full of pipes and wrenches. I love movies where they take a head and they just toss it around like a volleyball. You know what a head weighs? You want a small adult head weighs with the brain and the tongue and the hair intact? Last seen the evening of January 1st, 2026 at her residence near East Skyline Drive and North Campbell Avenue. Unknown what clothing she may be wearing. Well, what clothing was she wearing when you dropped her off? Do you think how often does she is she one of these? She doesn't look like a clothes horse that has to change her clothes she doesn't look like a TV personality who has to change her clothes every commercial break. Maybe she was naked. Did she sleep naked? Did you look and see which clothes were missing? Was her coat missing? The daytime high that day was 77. The overnight low was 55. Was her jacket missing? Which pair of shoes was missing? Do you know anything about this old bag at all? Huh. Well, anyway, on the 2nd, 9:17 a.m. local time, the sheriff says information gathered at the scene seems to suggest she may have been taken against her will. Wouldn't say what it was at all. I haven't found anything yet. Later that day, KOLD, the local affiliate of some TV network, I don't watch TV, said they received a ransom note. On February 3rd, by the end of the day, February 2nd, chatter on the anti-social media platforms is this is some horse shit. And that how could they let her wander off like that? Why don't they check the home security camera videos? People watch our cats on video all day. Was anybody keeping an eye on the old bag? Here's another thing that supposedly happened. He dropped her off at 9:47 p.m. At 11:15 a.m. the next morning, her friends called the family saying, where's Nancy? Because she used to get together with her friends. I don't know if they went from house to house or if they went to one house. But apparently it was her custom to get together with some of her old geezer friends and they would watch TV church together. And supposedly it was the same church that Savannah goes to in New York. They televised their church services and her mother would watch. So 11:15, the family gets a call. Nancy hadn't showed up. Sometimes she takes Uber, sometimes she gets a ride. Nobody seems to know what the fuck her plans, pardon my language. I get upset when I talk about this because I have talked to so many people who have faked so much shit over $50. When nobody called her Sunday morning and said, "Morning, Ma, sleep okay? Did you take your medicine? Did you eat your breakfast? What'd you eat for breakfast? You got a ride to church?" Nobody called? Nobody called. Nobody ever calls Sunday morning, see if she's okay? You got a ride to church? Did you take your medicine? Are you bleeding anywhere? She's 84 years old. I'm going to show you what kind of condition she was in. 84 years old with a pacemaker. Living alone. It's not a good look. And they haven't even announced. This is a game show she's going to do with Jimmy Fallon. So there's a lot riding on this. Network TV shrinks every minute. Well, you guys aren't watching network TV. At least you're not paying attention. Maybe you are. We're bringing them down. We're bringing them down, kids. One more time, I cannot thank NBC Universal enough. There is another network I can thank enough, but I cannot thank NBC Universal enough. But let's call a spade here. Her QBR matters to everybody. This isn't the 70s where they just throw up a game show a day and see which one sticks. It's her and Jimmy Fallon. If there's blowback from this, whether it's her fault or not. And remember, her go-arounds with Donald Trump haven't made her necessarily all that popular. You saw what happened to, what's his name from The Late Show? Colbert. And remember, she pushed that whole Russia-Trump collusion hoax longer than anybody. After that had been debunked, she kept pushing it. So does her best friend, Mark Kelly. He does it more passive-aggressive. Now, she's very smart. She is an attorney. They went to high school together, Senator Mark Kelly. Now, we're going to get to the turning against the sheriff here in just a second. Here's the thing, Alpine. It's a bad look. It's a bad look. Because his story to the cops was he dumped her off in the driveway and he watched her go in the garage door. I'm not buying it. I think he is... I'll show you. Why would he lie? Remember, he's an immigrant. I know he's a naturalized citizen now, but it's not a good time. Especially when your in-laws can't leave Trump alone and can't leave ICE alone. Ixnay on the ice way. My good people. They're trying to get their brother-in-law deported. 11:05 a.m. Tuesday, February the 3rd. Wednesday, February the 3rd. Tuesday, February the 3rd. She was dropped off, supposedly, 10 p.m. Saturday night, January 31st. Sunday, February 1st, reported missing. Broadcast that she's missing. Nothing about blood, nothing about any of that stuff. No news coverage mentions any tampering of the doors, no blood, no nothing. At 11:05 a.m., News Nation cameramen are on the scene. They approach the domicile in question. There is no police tape. They just walk right up to the door.
We shift back now to Arizona. We're hearing from police today who appeared no closer.
Now watch. This guy. He's talking about it after the fact. He did this live. You see the handrail? You see those steps? That's where the driveway would pull in right there. The garage is around the corner. Why would he go the extra way? I'll show you that in a minute. No blood on the sidewalk. Look! They just walked right up and there's blood everywhere. Look. Here's what I'm on about. The doormat was still there. The cops didn't pick it up. Nobody knew. Nobody mentioned anything about finding any blood. By the way, that's a very sturdy door. That's not a storm door. That's a security door. Look, there's an Amazon package. Amazon had been there on the 2nd. Not Amazon, probably UPS or whatever. Been there on the 2nd. Look. This guy's flabbergasted. Nobody ever noticed the blood. They didn't pick up that mat and take it in for hair and fiber analysis? Now, there are going to be some accusations of sloppy, incompetent police work. But this is one of the things that happened in the John Bonet case. And once again, what happens? Disparage the local police. Well, why would you do that? Son of Sam, disparage the local police. All these cases, disparage the local police. Yeah, that makes them get off their asses and do a better job. Number 2, here's another thing. Like in John Bonet, the cops didn't have the right to just search the house without a warrant and documented permission. They couldn't just search that house just because they wanted to. They had to go by what the family told them. She didn't show up at church, and we looked in the house. She's not in the house, so they immediately started searching for her. But apparently, the family didn't even walk around the outside of the house. They didn't look in the pool. They didn't look in the guest house. There's a guest house. But here's the thing about that sheriff. So, let me show you this real quickly one more time. Watch. You watch him step around the blood. Watch. He's stepping around the blood, stepping on the mat. Then when he steps up close to the camera, look, he's got his toes right up against the wall. He's avoiding that blood. Now when he turns around, he's going to make one mistake. It's because he's older and it takes him longer to turn around. Watch. It takes him 2 steps to turn around. That was a mistake. And one of the mistakes he made was, in the glare of this dim light, you see how the terracotta bricks and the terracotta tile are the same infrared color, kind of a glary. The blood would be exactly the same color. I will show you one more time here in just a moment. So they find the blood. Was Annie getting benefits for taking care of her mother? I know you can get it for your kids. Like if you're a grandmother taking care of the... See, she could have gotten money for babysitting the kids. See, I think there's a little money thing going on here. Money's tight for everybody right now. Tuesday the 3rd at 12:12 p.m., TMZ claims they get a ransom email. TMZ, if you kidnap somebody, you leave the ransom note at the scene of the crime. In the phony kidnapping of the Lindbergh baby, the purpose of the phony ransom notes was to change the narrative. TMZ claims to get a ransom email. This is not how it's done. This is not how it's done. The first thing they teach you in kidnapping class is you leave the ransom note. Now, what was funny was Lindbergh hired Mickey Cohen as a private investigator to look into the phony kidnapping of his son. Mickey Cohen said, number one, no self-respecting kidnapper would ask for less than $1 million for your kid. Well, he said, number one, you don't kidnap babies or toddlers, and you don't kidnap old people, is what he said. You don't kidnap people who got one foot in the grave and need constant care. You kidnap a healthy adult who can just grit their teeth and bear it for a couple of days. You do not kidnap tiny children, and you do not kidnap old people. He said, number two, you leave the fucking ransom note in the bed, the victim's bed, so you know the family finds it. You don't leave it on the windowsill, and you don't email it to TMZ. 3, if this is a kidnapping, why didn't they clean up the blood? It's hard to collect the ransom if it looks like you already killed the victim. And we're not talking about a bucket of blood. We're not talking about painted walls. We're talking about taking a towel and mopping up enough blood. You're looking at less than a cubic centimeter of blood on that porch. It looks like she coughed up or sneezed out some blood once. Remember, she's on blood thinners, and maybe had a cut on her hand that dripped a couple of times as she hobbled her way off the porch. I'll show you in a minute what happened. They get a ransom email. Now all of a sudden the narrative has changed. Oh my God, they're victims of a brutal kidnapping, blah, 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 blah. But it comes into TMZ, which looks really fake. And it was a really fake ransom note. Elder care benefits, you can get SS benefits. They don't want to keep people off nursing homes. Not 100% sure on that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And see, she could have been getting a check for helping take care of her grandchild or grandchildren. You get paid for that too, taking care of a relative. It's kids. It's like $120 a week or something, plus WIC, depending on the age of the child. It's always about the money, but I don't think it's that bad. I'll tell you what I think happened. So they get this phony ransom email. So later that day, signs of forced entry found at Arizona home of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie's mother. A person familiar with the investigation said, now that's either law enforcement and they'd be breaking the law because only the sheriff would be authorized or the coroner would be authorized to otherwise breaking the law. And Savannah was there. Her whole family were there, so they had knowledge of the crime scene. They're the only ones. Savannah's a glorified TV reporter. I wonder if she remembered to take her phone out of her pocket and snap a few pictures. Well, I'll jump ahead a little bit in the time frame because I know you're anxious to see what I've come up with. You're almost as anxious to see it as I am to show it to you. 12 concurrent viewers, that's the best we could do. I thought you people wanted current events. Okay, we can go back to talking about verifying every word of the Bible. That could only be Savannah. She is, after all, a network news anchor. February 4th, Savannah posted a video to her social media, not to TV, demanding proof. She didn't go on TV. She didn't go on the Today Show. She went on her own private social media saying, please give me my mommy back, but I demand proof of life first. Almost midnight that night, so this is like Indian time. This would be like midnight American time. Hours later, authorities reached Nancy's Arizona home around noon and found that her phone and Apple Watch were still inside the house. Apple Watch? She was wearing an Apple Watch? That's what happened. The watch killed her. You'll see. An Apple Watch and a floodlight. February 9th, the deadlines for ransom come and go. Nothing happens. No proof of life. And once again, the internet is starting to scream publicity stunt. They don't even know about the game show yet. February 10th, Kash Patel. Killer Kash Patel. Show me the Kash Patel. Oh boy. Says, hey, I've got a team of super secret cyber guys, and they got into Google servers, and they found this video. Really? That's amazing. How could Google servers record a video that had never been recorded? No. How is this possible? See, there are two parallel systems on Nest Aware. One system just logs things like motion detected or disconnected from power. That's a separate system. You don't pay to keep that information. If you want to save the video clips longer than 3 hours, you have to pay for an Aware subscription. Anybody who knew she had one knew that they had a minimum of 3 hours to download any video clips they'd like to save and show to Kash Patel later. Google didn't say it came from them. The FBI technicians were not named. There's no special unit. There's none of that crap. But that was February 10th. Along about that time, what they need to do, Medley, is they need to plug in to the Stones Unturned podcast. Remember, Kash Patel is someone that Savannah Guthrie and her best friend Mark Kelly and her husband, is it Mark Feldman? The guy who invented crisis management? Who was it before Paula Jones? Who was the blonde before Paula Jones? Then Paula, Monica, you name them all. Jeffrey, Jelaine, you name them all. Who wrote the press release claiming that George Bush stole the 2000 election? Mr. Feldman. Who wrote the press release claiming that Donald Trump was trying to steal the 2020 election? Mr. Feldman. Married to Nancy. Been calling Kash Patel nothing but a liar and a fraud and a drunk since before the day he was born. Why would we believe anything Kash Patel tells us? This comes back to disparaging the local sheriff, who's a Democrat, by the way, and who was appointed and then ran for re-election in 2024 and barely won. This means that Senator Mark Kelly, Democrat of Tucson, Arizona, had to help him get elected. He owes his job to Mark Kelly. He owes his job to Savannah's husband. He owes his job to Savannah. I'm sure he owes his job to Nancy. So why would he torpedo them? Why would he say what he wants them to? My point is, they've called him an incompetent, perjurious liar and a fraud and a fake, and they have said that this investigation was garbage from the get-go. I only bring it up because he also exonerated Savannah's brother-in-law. So I guess the investigation that exonerated Savannah's brother-in-law was garbage, right? Because you cannot have it both ways, counselor, and I know you know that because you graduated top in your class, you magna cum laude. Georgetown University Law School, Aiken Gump. Breeze through the bar, you were tops in your class in the bar exam. And congratulations. But you cannot have it both ways. You cannot claim that a lying, perjurious fraud of a sheriff exonerated your brother. You can't have it both ways. You can't call Cash Patel a liar every single day and then believe anything that and expect us to believe anything he tells us. Especially when it's obvious horseshit like, oh, I got this secret group of hackers and they dug up this video clip that hadn't been deleted from the server yet. No, you didn't. I do believe the story where they got the one frame. I think they might have, Google or somebody might have pulled that off. Maybe. Because it's only one frame. That one frame might have been locatable. Maybe. But I'm afraid it cracks the case. If it's authentic, it cracks the case. Not Donna Rice. The one before, the blonde. Some of us are too young to remember. Some of us are too old. Paula Jones was the brunette. But before Paula Jones, it was the blonde. Not Hillary. It was never Hillary. It was never one. He went to Lolita Island 26 times. He went for a private weekend retreat at a lush, private tropical island paradise and never once took his wife. Not once. They're still married. You know they're still married, right? Talk about keeping up appearances. Now you made me lose my train of thought. Who came before Paula Jones? The blonde. But Nancy's husband invented crisis management to handle those. He set up Media Matters. He set up MoveOn.org. He's on that team. Right now, he's the most expensive crisis management consultancy firm in the world, I think. He's Savannah's husband. He's been completely in the... has anybody even seen him during this? Well, here's the thing. You saw the video. Doom, 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 doom. You see him step around the blood. The problem is, what he didn't know... I'll come back to that, I guess. I have identified both pairs of shoes, by the way, and it cracks the case. Now, in an interview with the Today Show on February 24th, on the Today Show, Sheriff Nano said the images recovered from the doorbell camera did not include dates or timestamps, and any conclusions about when the photos were taken are speculative. The photo was taken on a separate day, a source told CNN. Oh, that's that anonymous source again. And investigators now believe the suspect may have visited Guthrie's home on multiple occasions. Yeah, he'd been there many times. He'd been there many times. But he didn't off the old broad. He didn't do anything wrong. Well, he did a little something wrong. It's totally understandable. I've seen it. I've seen cases. On Court TV, Cameron Guthrie on the 24th, right? They get these little media bursts out there. He said that, well, the reason there's no video is the Nest Aware subscription lapsed. Well, in real life, what happens is Google always, if you create a Nest Aware subscription, whether you get the paid tier or not, on the free tier, it will, if it's connected to the internet, it will automatically record videos, and you got 3 hours to download them before they're marked for auto deletion. So anybody who knew about the video could have downloaded and had access to the account could have downloaded the video during that 3-hour window. Anybody. And if that video it has no timestamp visible on the thing, I don't know why you wouldn't do that. Your insurance company. I guess that's the difference between criminal law and risk management. Risk management is all about the money. I can't believe her insurance company didn't throw a fit. I'll bet they have thrown a fit. I wonder what the insurance company is saying. This was March 26th. Doors were propped open at missing mother's Arizona home, Savannah Guthrie recounts in an interview on the Today Show during her hiatus. When Savannah got there, the doors were propped open, so she's not lying. Well, cops are in and out, so of course the back door is propped open. Way back on February 3rd, signs of forced entry found this is a person familiar with the investigation. That's obviously Savannah, trying to create the... But here's the back door, and there are no signs of forced entry, and there are no signs that the police even fingerprinted the door. They did, however, remove the floodlight. Here's the thing. Savannah confirmed that ransom note to TMZ, which is the most blatant fake of all time, did contain 2 facts that were not known to the public. And the really funny thing is he waited a few days. He didn't accidentally say anything in his ransom note that was known to the public. How did he know what the public knew and didn't know? Or supposedly is true and he knew and didn't know. Now, supposedly, the ransom note said something about her Apple Watch. Savannah herself confirmed that their mother's Apple Watch was found in the house. So she did have an Apple Watch. And he mentioned something about that floodlight. And apparently there was some damage to the floodlight or something. So that proves that the person who wrote that ransom note to TMZ had personal knowledge of the scene that was identical to Savannah Guthrie's. Everything he said she knew on February 1st as well. That doesn't prove she wrote it. Not by a long shot. Or that her husband wrote it and knew how to get it to TMZ. You think the anchor of the Today Show can't? Here's the thing about TMZ. I just read an article in Politico about how they're really making a presence felt in Washington, D.C. this year. Why would you email it to TMZ? You don't want the media and the cops to be there when you get the... Well, I guess you're just doing the whole Bitcoin thing. I guess you don't have to worry about a handoff. Why'd they take the body? I can't understand why you take a body. We'll come back to that in a minute. But as you can plainly see, there's no evidence of there was a break-in. She never puts her name on a claim that it was broken into. Those are always anonymous. During this interview, she talks about how it felt to stand there in her mother's house with the doors propped open, knowing somebody took her mother out through the doors. The interviewer, who owes her job to Savannah, Hoda Kotb, how do you pronounce that name? I'm putting a tax on every pickup truck I see dragging around an empty trailer, and I'm putting a tax on every name I see that is not spelled the way it's pronounced. Didn't ask her, well, how did it feel when you saw the blood? I mean, that's bone-chilling, goosebump TV. If you want to gather sympathy for Savannah, ask her what it felt like when you saw your mother's blood gashed all over the front porch. Or did you see it? She doesn't mention that. And she doesn't mention anything about checking the doorbell camera videos and finding out that the subscription had lapsed more than 3 hours ago. Didn't ask her how she felt about that either. What she asked her about was things that she felt when she arrived at the scene and had nothing to do with the crime, so she can't be accused of lying. But everything in that ransom note to TMZ that the kidnapper knew was known to Savannah, and we can prove that. Doesn't mean she wrote it. Doesn't mean her husband wrote it. But we know that the information could have come from her. That's all we know. And it didn't contain any information that she didn't already blab to us before the... See what I mean? Kind of funny. It's kind of funny. The ransom note didn't notice anything about, I forgot to mop up the blood. Don't pay any attention to the blood. Your mom just scraped her elbow and we put a Band-Aid on it and she was fine. He didn't say anything about the blood in the ransom note either. Pay no attention to the blood behind the curtain. Your mother's fine. This is completely fake. And we know that because we've seen quite a few fakes exactly like it on the Stones Unturned podcast. And it turns out that Savannah's dad worked in the same industry, that all of this stuff. The Nugan Bank, missile silos, Reynolds Metals, Reynolds Securities. It's crazy. It's crazy. And they're running the same playbook like it is a playbook. and her brothers and some super secret intel. And he's the one who said, he said, well, this looks like a targeted attack. Yeah, they'd be going after. I'm glad he got the message. That way they don't have to go after any other members of his family. Keep your eyes open for the blood money, because they usually pay the blood money. Carl's mother got the blood money. Told me that himself. He was classier about it. He didn't say anything about it being blood money. Why would the son-in-law drive all the way back here to the garage to let her in through the garage door? She came out through the front door and got in the Uber. Why wouldn't he pull up and let her off here? Let me show you what actually happened. Her Apple Watch killed her. See those blood drops? Everybody thinks she was attacked at the door, got up, stumbled, or was carried down the stairs. That she came out the door and was attacked. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nancy Guthrie's Apple Watch. As she was walking up the stairs in the dark, she stumbled. You see, look right down here at ground level. Do you see there where the base of the handrail post is set in that concrete? When she got to the rail, her slipper tripped over that, and she went to catch herself. I forgot to put my watch on. This is not an Apple Watch. No podcasters will be harmed in the performance of this demonstration. You don't have to put it on that tight, dummy. You're just showing people what happened. I will show you a picture. When she fell, and she was reaching up for the rail, and she stumbled, and she fell. And as she fell, her Apple Watch got too close to her pacemaker. And the magnet in the Apple, it's all about the wireless charging of the pacemaker. It clicks into charging mode. Boom, 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 boom. This can very often cause what is called pacemaker syndrome, where the pacemaker is interfering with the heartbeat, and instead of the heart going like this, it kind of goes into fibrillation, where it's doing this. If you're on heavy blood thinners because you're on a pacemaker, and I will show you, if you are on NSAIDs because of severe back pain on top of blood thinners, you are running a very high risk of fatal pacemaker syndrome. But the blood doesn't start till you get to the port. So it can cause this problem. She wouldn't necessarily just drop dead. Her heart doesn't stop beating. May 11th, Savannah Guthrie announces new hosting gig at NBC. Been holding this secret for a long time. Why was NBC holding on to it? They wanted to make sure you got over your vocal cord surgery. How did she sound when she was called away from the desk? Was her voice okay? It takes a long time sometimes to recover. You get calluses right back on there again. On March the 20th, video of Nancy Guthrie and Uber obtained by FBI reports. Okay. That's reported on March 20th. In this same article, the security gate in front of the door would be nearly impossible to break through from the outside. That on the front door, that heavy security door on the outside. Leading some law enforcement experts to believe a second suspect was already in the house. Well, why didn't he go to the front door and just reach around and grab the camera and pull it off the wall? Why would anybody go around to the front of the house? Why would anybody go around to the front door? You don't go in through the front door. You go in through a window. Usually a garage window. If there is one, and there are several, you go in through a garage window. Nobody will hear a thing. Nobody will hear a thing. In that garage, nobody would see a thing or hear a thing. You go in through the garage window. You don't go in through the front door. You stay away from the front door. You wouldn't take her out the front door. We'll come back to that. Sheriff accused, this is May the 12th. What's the day? 22nd? Sheriff accused of botching Nancy Guthrie case dodges meeting about claims he committed perjury. An answer Nanos gave during a 2024 lawsuit. The sheriff was asked whether he had ever been suspended during his law enforcement career and responded no. But he had, in fact, been suspended from the El Paso Police Department multiple times for insubordination and consistent inefficiency, and finally resigned in 1982 in lieu of disciplinary action after a dispute with the supervisor. This guy exonerated Savannah's brother-in-law. So you can take that for whatever the hell it's worth. Profilers think this was more personal than financial. The watch. Here's the backyard. The pool is immaculate. That costs at least... What does that cost? No, the average, it was actually a cool day that day. The average high at the end of January is 80, it's low 80s. Low around 60. Tucson. Between the landscaping and the pool, it's got to be $500 a month at least. Tucson's a small town, but jeepers. Blood stains show that this dingleberry was there at least 3 or 4 hours after the blood was spilled on the doormat, and possibly up to 24 hours later. There is no time and date stamp on this video, and the sheriff said there wasn't any metadata either, which meant it had to be removed. You know, Google or the FBI could not have found said. Also, look at the detail of his shoes. I will show you the brand of shoe. The FBI's hackers could not have found that video if they didn't have the metadata, if they couldn't search by metadata. This was the shoe, Merrill Nova 3. He stepped on the mat, which had still had a little puddle of blood that hadn't dried yet. As you can see in the picture, it had a little skin on top like pudding. Maybe 24 hours. It's possible. 20 hours. Waited till dark, went back. Maybe. He went back at least 3 or 4 hours later, so we just don't know. And he's dressed differently. Was it this guy? I don't know. I will show you what I know. Why the hell is this doing in here? Let me show you this video, because that is a subliminal frame. I think it just happened he was editing clips, and this frame did not get edited out. But let's watch this video. Is this guy left-handed or right-handed? Somebody tell me. When I worked in restaurants, I'm right-handed, so I carried the tray in my right hand, and I handled the food and the beverages with my left. Is he left-handed? You tell me. Do you use your opposite hand when you make the gesture? Whatever the gesture is? He's the exact height and weight of the assailant. Now watch this part of the video. You missed that frame, but if you freeze frame it, okay? Let me go back. I'm sorry. I'm going to see something. Because experts believe that the dingleberry on the doorbell camera is left-handed. This doesn't prove anything. I'm not accusing him of committing a crime. All right, never mind. We'll move on for now. I'm not accusing him of committing a serious felony. But there was a frame left over in that video. I don't know if that means anything. I don't think it does. I hope not. These are just fun videos they made for the students, I think. He's a teacher. He's an AP science teacher at a middle school. Here's the meat on the bone. When his body's blocking most of the glare, you can plainly see the blood stains were already there. You know, you're looking at this from 2 different angles, okay? But you can see the blood was already there. And maybe even some of that debris. He went back 3 to 4 hours, possibly up to 24 hours. It's all to change the narrative, blah, blah, blah. It's possible on February 5th, the sheriff said that the Nest subscription had expired. This is important because this is blood that looks like it has been coughed or sneezed out. It's very thin, like it's been thinned with heparin or some other blood thinner, anticoagulant, and some NSAIDs. What I want to point out here is, do I have a slide for this? No. Do you see this arc right here on the left-hand side? Let me zoom it in for you. Do you see this arc here? This is where these are terracotta tiles that are very uneven, very unsafe. But they bought the house in 85. You see this right here? This is where the tile kind of has a hump to it. And you see this, like it's like a shadow. It's the opposite of a shadow. That means that her face was, looking at it, well, it doesn't matter. But it looks like her face was very, very close. It's almost like she fell and went, "Puh!" Like she fell down and went, "Puh!" It's almost like the impact of the fall knocked it out of her. More than a cough. Now there's blood drips. And there are blood drips as we zoom out. So we know there was motion, and we can get a relative time of the motion, how fast the blood was coming out, the distance between the drops. You saw all this last night. If she fell, her Apple Watch would be right next to her pacemaker, and that alone can cause pacemaker syndrome, which could cause her to start coughing out blood. I did not fall. It heard me say fall. It thought I fell. Did her Apple Watch detect a fall? There's been talk that her Apple Watch was not connected to her phone and didn't store data online, just like her camera. We don't know. We really don't know. But if she simply fell, this is exactly what happened. He let her out of the car at the front door where she belongs. Now these other red dots are not done to scale, so don't at me. But this is basically what we find. We find a cluster of dots and one puh right here, very close to the mat, very close to the door. Maybe she started to blah, 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 and then fell and went blah. Or maybe when she fell and coughed up some blood during that fall, maybe she cut her hand on the door handle. I'm going to show you something in just a second. Maybe this is what happened. It wouldn't kill her right away. But it would be a medical emergency. I forgot to look up something. Unless the video is reversed. No, it's not reversed. But the gun holster is for an imaginary kidnapper, baby bull. You saw the gloves, right? The only thing he's going to do with that gun is shoot his balls off. Because that looks like it's either Beretta 380 or a Glock 380 or something like that with one of those hair triggers. And if he goes to quick draw that gun with those gloves on, he's going to shoot his balls off. What if he saw her fall and he came and helped her up and said, "We got to get you to the hospital, Ma"? How far? It took the nearest sheriff's deputy 12 minutes to get there. That's not okay. Google Maps. What was that address that guy said she lived at? East Skyline Drive and North Campbell Avenue. East Skyline Drive and North Campbell Avenue. A lot of people have searched for it. It's a very popular search destination. Okay. So she's right there. You can't see that. Here. Okay. Here's Tucson. South of Tucson is the museum of... they have a museum. You can go see a Titan II missile silo and a missile. But they had silos all around Tucson, and that is apparently what Savannah's dad worked on. He'd be as a civilian contractor. Because when he graduated from college in 1960, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't prove, but he's been dead almost 40 years. So what would this have to do anything? But this is where it happened. It's kind of a remote area. Where is the nearest directions to ambulance? No, directions to emergency room. How close is the nearest emergency room? Okay, let me copy this. Let me say hospital, Tucson. Tucson urgent care. Now, how about urgent care near Tucson? Near Tucson, Arizona. "30 minutes. I mean, and this is a small town. Hospital, Tucson, Arizona. My point is, if that happened, Tucson Medical Center, 20 minutes. 20 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes for an ambulance to get, 20 minutes for an ambulance to get there, 20 minutes to get her to the hospital. He knows how sick she is. If he saw her fall and he jumped out of the car and he ran up there and said, "Come on, Ma, we got to get you to the hospital, sweetie." And he picked her up and started getting her walking, and she just had a cut on her hand from trying to get in the door, and it dropped a couple more drops of blood, and she pulled it in like this or whatever, and her clothing is starting, because it's not like, they try to make it sound like cut her head off or something. She just had one, and I'll show you what, she would bleed very easily. But once she gets on her feet, he can't, 150 pounds, but if he can get her on her feet and get her down the sidewalk and get her back in the car and start driving to the emergency room, over the next 15 to 20 minutes, she could easily die. I mean, I don't think she would live very long after this. You're coughing up blood. You don't have long to live. Ask Kyle Busch. That's what I was going to show you. Did you see this? Did you see what happened to Kyle Busch? Kyle Busch dropped dead. Do you know what he was doing? Short of breath, coughing up blood. You got your mother-in-law in the seat next to you. You don't call 911. That'll take too long. You get her in the car. She's not dead, but she's not in good shape. She's having one of her spells, having one of her attacks. She's coughing up blood. You get her in the car, you start driving to the hospital, but she's having pacemaker syndrome, so she dies. What do? You're an immigrant. You've been here 20 years. They don't cut no ice with you know who. He's a naturalized immigrant? Do we know this for sure? He's married, right, legally to Annie. But all this talk about Trump and ICE and deportations, and his family are obsessed with it, ranting and raving about it for obvious, political reasons. You moved the body. Who's going to believe you? What do? You don't have a lot of time to think about it. She's already in the car. She walked back to the car with his help. Then she died. So he doesn't have to pick her up and move her. He has to figure out what to do with her. Does he take her to the emergency room? Here's another thing. It's his mother-in-law. They're not going to think he did it on purpose, are they? You got to think about these things. If he hid her body in order to not collect the insurance money, that's a misdemeanor, not a felony. And here's another thing. He is from the old country. He is from Tuscany. Family honor. Oh, my God. And let me tell you something about people from any country that's not America, Canada, or maybe England, Scotland. The truth is completely what will help your family or your patron. That's just how it is. They don't have the same idea of telling the truth under oath that we do. They tell the story that's going to help their family. When he married Annie, Savannah is now his sister, and Nancy is his mother. If he's from Italy, they take this seriously. And his family honor and her family honor are going to be the number one thing on his mind, besides their health and safety. He knows what it's going to look like if Savannah's brother-in-law is accused of either murdering the old bag or just letting her die of neglect. I'm telling you, he would put Savannah's honor ahead, maybe ahead of his own, maybe not ahead of his wife, but he would put Savannah's honor right up there with any blood kin. And he would take it seriously. And he would stick his neck out. And he's a science teacher. Handling a dead body is not that... I don't know about Italy 20 years ago, but when I was a kid, we brought the dead person home. There was still family. And we put them in the living room in a coffin, let people come over to the home and visit. And half the time we bury them in the backyard, family plot. There's still family. A lot of families, they don't. In Jesus' time, Pharisees, for example, they defleshed the bones. That was part of taking care of the dead. They didn't run away from the dead. They took care of them. And as a science teacher married to a family of miners who know the location of half the 10,000 abandoned mine shafts there are within an hour of Tucson, if he had to get rid of a body, he could. I'm sure he gave her a dignified burial, and I'm sure he said a very beautiful prayer. And I'm sure he understood that she would understood. He didn't kill her. It's not his fault in the slightest. Now, this is hypothetical, but it explains all the evidence. Because now what do? You got to fake a kidnapping. Not yet. You just got to pretend she wandered off. But after a day or so of that not flying, then all of a sudden, you got to come up with a kidnapping. This one. This could be 24 hours later. If he went in through the back door, why did he bother going around to the front door? If he went in through the front door, why did he bother propping open the back door? Are you with me? If he knew he was being recorded, why would he go back several hours, possibly 24 hours later? If he didn't know he was being recorded, why would he go back and get the camera? And why would he hide from the camera? But if he knew there was an expired Nest subscription, or even if he knew there was a Nest subscription and he had access to it, he could go online and delete any embarrassing videos. And if he happened to know it was expired and he was a science teacher who could look up stuff on the internet and find out he had 3 hours to download the clip, let me show you what actually happened. Let me show you what happened. This poor guy who did nothing to nobody, well, you know what? Let's just go. What time is it? You guys probably got to eat supper too. Hi, Kevin. Bush is probably pneumonia. I don't know. It's just kind of funny. All right, I'm going to show you guys something. I should do a poll. Let me do a poll. Start a poll. Should I continue focusing on this case? Although I've already cracked it. Should I continue focusing for a while on Nancy Guthrie for a while? It will circle back around to what we're talking about because of her family. But that had nothing to do with this. You want me to continue focusing on Nancy Guthrie? I hate this keyboard. I hate every keyboard. Start a poll. There we go. It doesn't mean that I will obey it. So if all he did, now if he explains it that way, and I would back him to the hilt. If he explains it that way, he's looking at a misdemeanor and lying to the cops. But once again, it wasn't to get money. It was to protect his family, to protect his sister-in-law. It's understandable. And being from the old country, I don't know if he had any choice. Your core beliefs make all your decisions years in advance. Whoever you think you are, whatever you believe, you have chosen your spouse. You have chosen your career. You have chosen where you're going to live. You have chosen your political candidates. If he came to this country as an adult from Tuscany, I don't see how internally he had any choice. Especially when he had a very short period of time to figure out what to do. I think it was actually pretty admirable. He didn't hurt a fly. Hypothetically. But if you want to believe anything that the lying, perjurous, blah, blah, blah sheriff and the drunken liar Kash Patel tell you, I'm wrong. It just depends on who you want to believe, I guess. His wife collects gems and jewels. I'm sure they've been prospecting in those old abandoned mines, at least for fun. I'm sure Savannah's dad took her and her brother and sister prospecting. Get plugged in and I will show you something. Oh, I got heartburn. I hope I don't start coughing up blood. If I start coughing up blood and Google claims they don't have video of it, you know they're lying. I need to stop making my phone ignore me because I need my phone to sometimes respond. Gotta figure that out. Oh, I got terrible heartburn. Most men do love and cherish their mother-in-law. Now listen. This is a smart guy. It's his mother-in-law. You know, think about it. Think about it. You're like, what did I do wrong? Maybe he was helping her up the steps and she fell. Maybe he did blame himself. And it's like, it's my mother-in-law, so they're not going to believe me when I tell them it's an accident, right? I mean, you'd panic. Not panic. The problem was he didn't panic. He stopped to think. That's his problem. His problem is he outsmarted himself. The guy who made that video is pretty fucking smart. Even if he had 24 hours to plan it, and he did, obviously. Maybe when he picked up that last fresh drop of blood, not fresh, but last liquid drop of blood, the scientific consensus is it's possible. Yeah, but did Google exonerate the brother-in-law? You know, this is my point before we go into members only. Why is Savannah acting like the kidnapper's lawyer? Because throwing mud at the investigators is exactly what the defense attorney would do. Why is she acting like she's the kidnapper's lawyer? Was there something else that happened today? Oh, there's the countdown time. We got 2 minutes. Are you doing Idaho 4? Was that on the poll? I can. Tomorrow, I'll do another poll asking if people want me to do Idaho 4. I'll go into the paid. When we go to the paid, in a minute and 33 seconds, I'll put up a new poll. And we'll find out. If you want me to do that case, I can. Well, I mean, of course I can. We'll see what people want me to do. Medley, what do you want? You got the... I'll let you, clue you in. I want to save the coin to do a whole episode about it because it will complete my collection of counterfeit money. I don't want to give you too many spoilers because the story of this coin is the story of the world you're living in now. What was the thing you guys said about it? When we go into live, somebody said something about that. Message to the parents for snitching on Aryan Nation. Hold that thought. Send me emails. Drop comments. Tomorrow night I'll have some new YouTube free movie. I need to make a public playlist for you guys to look at. I think I will. That is a good idea. I could just make a public playlist and you guys could just go find the videos. But it's got hundreds of videos on it. That's the problem. They have The Abominable Dr. Phibes. You can search for that on YouTube right now. Oh, and watch The In-Laws. You have to watch The In-Laws. You have to watch The In-Laws. And The Conversation is free on YouTube right now, free with ads. Gene Hackman. Mwah. I'll see you later. You guys, the paying members, you stick around.